it's called Room 4 in order to emphasize the fact that it's literally just a room that you can fill with whatever you choose, and you can invite whoever.
Room 4 began during October of 2018 in Asheville, North Carolina.
Room 4 started for me as a social experiment primarily, but as a social experiment that's rooted within the arts community.
In May of 2014, I graduated from a college preparatory school in Biltmore Park, North Carolina, with a GPA of 3.2 and an award for Best Thespian.
I think that within the arts community, especially like an underground scene where people are interacting more casually and it's based more off of relationships, I would say, than like a professionalism or something like that, it can become very tribal, and that's natural to the kind of language and like politics that are involved with that culture.
I was not accepted for my essay about dropping out of high school to become a part of the underground noise music community.
One thing that I noticed keep coming up in conversations was like this idea of accessibility and people wanting an accessible space, and that felt like a real like key word. But I was thinking, like, what if this idea of accessibility was like really taken to the extreme?
I want to believe.
How do we like our coffee? Black, green, sugar?
Literally anyone could just use this space as a resource, and it was very cleared of any kind of preference for genre or political representation or aesthetic representation. And it was actually just a model of if you take a private endeavor and make it a public resource. That kind of formed my entire ethos behind booking for the space, and also allowing people to use the space just individually for their own, for a practice space or like temporary studio.
Room 4 was sustained by 3 other people who rented it for studio space: Salome Navarro, Mackenzie Toma, and Landon George.
Like, there was an instance where someone started, like, they became a studio co-op member, and I looked at them and I was like, welcome to the art mafia, because it's like, it really is like, that's like my like ultimate vision, is like just this like clan of people who like buy up everything and then open it up to the public. And so then it's like, it's kind of this like nation within a nation or something.
Rent for the space was $425 a month, and it was split equally among all 4 people. But only Landon and Johanna were willing to be interviewed. Landon is a full-time musician who wanted to use Room 4 to record an album and teach drum lessons.
Hey y'all, feel free to come on in. There's still some room up here, as long as we don't mess up any of this cool stuff over here. But you can come a little closer too.
I went in and I was like, is this going to be a nuisance to other people? And they were like, no, it won't be any problem, because we're zoned the same as Fleetwood, which is the neighboring club, and they have music all night and stuff. So it was awesome at first. It was like a place. I lived right down the street. I could ride my motorcycle up there, get in there, have some space.
With 4 renters and all costs covered, Johanna's model for the space seemed to be working out, and a lot of unique acts had a place to perform.
But like, we had one show there basically, and then it just like opened up. Like, people started hitting up Johanna left and right, like, yo, like, my band wants to play here, my band wants to play here, my band wants to play here.
Who is Poos? What is Poos?
So my name's Benjamin Martin, and I do a performance called Poos the Puppet. I didn't know what to expect. I'd never been to Room 4, but it was like really cozy. out of the entire tour, we definitely said that was our best show. So it was the show where everyone was into it, everybody participated. It was super fun.
My name is Will. I play under the moniker Blank.
Okay, hi.
I don't really remember how I got that first show at Room 4. Or no, it was just the Room 4 Instagram page. Somebody was like, send this new DIY spot a message on Instagram. And I just did, like, cold message, hopefully they'll respond, and it worked out great. And we did the show, and it was fantastic, such a cool space.
Yeah, Room 4 was cool. I liked that it was like an office vibe.
Are y'all ready to start the show? It's really up to you.
I just felt like I just came in and did whatever the fuck, and they were like solid. Thank you so much for being here. You're awesome.
Those already running similar spaces in the area encountered Room 4 as well. Did either of you ever go to Room 4?
Yeah.
What did you think about that space?
I thought it was cool. DIY space, not in a house. Bring
not
your
in a
own
house,
beer.
not in a venue. BYOB.
Fucking sick.
Sammy and Arya run a house venue named Mold House.
Yeah, I think the premise of it, like, not being a bar made it a lot more accessible.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like, it not being in a house takes away a certain level of, like, social anxiety that some people might have going into a place that they don't know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like, this is still, it was still a public space.
I mean, like, yeah, we don't have that many shows here because there are so many reasons that we wouldn't be able to, like, host something on a certain night.
Zandy runs a house venue named Brucemont.
Room 4 was a great space because it could afford to be more active, because it was just a space. It wasn't like a home. It wasn't like in anybody's home or near anybody's home. It was literally like street side, which is perfect because it's basically like a dedicated venue at that point. But it's still DIY, so you don't have like the regulatory shit that like venues have to deal with. And for that reason alone, like, it's powerful. It's got so much potential.
I mean, I know Joanna, and I know Room 4, and I've been to shows at Room 4, but I have not utilized them for that purpose. Though I know that I think, like, Brucemont probably has before, and I know other friends who've definitely directed people there just because they're consistently doing things.
Margot runs a house venue named Margaritaville.
I mean, I think it would take so much work to do it. I would not want to, working a full-time job, but I respect anyone who would take on that effort.
Even though the location of Room 4 seemed perfect, its proximity to other businesses wasn't ideal.
And that's also about the time we started getting complaints from the business downstairs. So they had a dialogue with Johanna about not having noise during the day, and then that didn't get communicated to me.
I was carrying my amps, and the person downstairs had already complained about the noise just from load-in.
And then I was in there playing drums one day, and somebody started honking their horn outside. Yo, yo, like screaming. And I like looked out the window. I had a student in there, and I was like, I'm sorry, 1 second. Looked out the window, and it's like this dude, and he's like mad as hell. And he's like, what the fuck are you doing, man? And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, and I was like tight. I was mad, to be honest, because it's like, this is my business. Like, he's like infringing upon like my student's time. So I had to stop the lesson, go down there, talk to this dude, and he was like, he's like, yeah, we already talked to Johanna about this, like, no noise, like, before 6 p.m. So I was like, yo, red flag, like, Because I came into the whole thing being like, yeah, we're zoned the same as Fleetwood's. Like, I can play drums during the day. It's not a problem.
It seemed like there was tension between room 4 and like the businesses underneath.
Mary, a co-owner of Fleetwood's, also had some concerns.
Oh yeah, I mean, we would hear the bands play. We were aware that bands were playing over there, but that was about it. The only thing that I'd ever heard was one of their building neighbors came over and asked if we had been disturbed or bothered by them at all, and we haven't and weren't. The only potential thing I was worried about was there was a lot of underage drinking in the back parking lot and on the street, which could bring bad press to the area. We have all-age shows here, and I did not want anything we were doing to be compromised by something illegal happening across the way.
Unfortunately, none of Room 4's closest neighbors were willing to be interviewed. But after about 9 months of operating, Room 4 was having multiple events on some weeks.
Once like the word had really spread about things and we were like operating at our like peak capacity, I was spending like 20 hours a week at least, organizing things, like communicating with people, setting up the shows, being at the shows. Sometimes I'm sure I put in like 30 to 35 hours a week.
On July 10th, 2019, Johanna announced that Room 4 was ending. It was ultimately a combination of the space's popularity and location that brought it to an end.
When we were asked to play this show, we said,
I don't see why not.
Really, the main reason it's coming to an end is just because it exists within a building where there are other people who occupy the adjacent studios, and I like have just come to a place where I feel like I'm maybe taking up more space than is appropriate in this situation, and there's no reason why. It's just not quite the right location or environment for something to exist where there's like a constant influx of so many people. And also I have no desire to like do something where that influx is like limited, because that flow of people is necessary for like the kind of financial and social sustainability of the space.
I think that ultimately it came to just being too much on one person. Like, you gotta have discretion or you gotta have your ideals. And I think that Johanna had their ideals about having like this free space. Anybody can come and do their thing.
I mean, not that she couldn't handle something like that. I think that she probably could have, but it's really hard, and you kind of can't expect anyone to. It can be really sort of, you know, it can be a really thankless thing to do.
At a certain point, this may have reached a level where it wouldn't have needed someone who was so centrally managing everything, or it would have been able to financially support itself, but it's just not at that point yet, and it didn't reach that point soon enough.
It would have been sick for it to be sustainable, because it's such a fucking cool thing, you know, where people can come, like all ages, all demographics, you know, and experience, you know, something that's really like grassroots and like not administrated by some like higher power. I mean, it was functional anarchy at its best.
The show I'm playing tonight was initially booked at Room 4, but I remember Johanna was like, I'm sorry, Room 4 is not going to work out this time. It's not going to be a space anymore by the time you get here. Which was a bummer. I really loved that space. It was special.
The final show at Room 4 took place July 26, 2019. A cellist and 3 guitarists performed.
We came out because it's the last Room 4 show that we know about, and
sad day.
Sad to see this place go. This is my room 4. I barely knew you. You know.
It was a really unique space where people could express themselves and be creative, and I think it's the last dying vestige of the originality and soul of Asheville as it's slowly squashed out by corporations and tourists.
Words to hide the thoughts we have. Skin to hide the heart that breaks.
Yeah, I'm kind of sad that this is the last night because I've played it here twice, and yeah, it seems like the momentum was getting going. But that's also the nature of spaces. That's the nature of spaces, DIY spaces, right? They have like a 2-year shelf life. I have no, I think, like illusions about that at this point, being a 41-year-old man who's been playing in like underground music scene since I was a teenager, and still playing, you know, a variety of spaces, you know, whether it's like clubs or theaters or DIY spaces. They tend to last like 2-3 years tops, I think. To me, you're losing kind of accessibility in a certain sense. Like, people have a hard time finding gigs in this town, even though there's a lot of clubs and, you know, and there's a lot of music happening everywhere. You know, there's a convenience factor to like places being run where you can like say, hey, I got this weird artist that's coming, and can we just do this? And it's very, no problem, take the space, you know, do it. You know, like there's kind of an openness that I think, you know, you just don't get when you have like sort of a business that has like brick and mortar overhead and considerations, you know, financial considerations that make it difficult to book outsider art, if you will. And, you know, and that's an American problem, right? Like if you go over to, you know, Europe, where you have mixed economy, by that I mean mixed with socialism, where you have a lot of clubs and DIY spaces end up getting partially subsidized, and then they're not having to rely on just like booze sales, you know. So you have a space like this that could last 25, 30, 40 years, and they exist all over Europe because they have, there's just enough to float, you know, you can float it, and you can pay the musicians and everything, and there's a place to sleep, and you get food to eat, and culture can like continue.
Bye, room 4. I think Travis did it. That was the last song, room 4. Damn.
What's that?
That was the last song.
That was the last one.
Room 4, yeah.
Room 4, wow, yeah.
Long live the art mafia.